Some years ago, Roger and I were walking on some low hills overlooking a beach, and as we looked out to sea, we spotted the head of a seal just behind the waves. It kept popping its head up and diving under the waves. And then we noticed a group of people, about 6, walking together at the edge of the sea. They were all talking to each other quite animatedly, and this continued as they drew level with the seal. They carried on talking and walking and passed the seal by, and it was obvious that none of them had noticed it. I've thought of that occasion many times since. How often do we fail to notice something of interest quite close to us? Last year, we all had to learn how to deal with the pandemic and to cope with our first lockdown. Life changed dramatically for us all. I began to visit my local park most days. I visited many times before, of course, but then I was accompanied by the grandchildren. So it was a busy and rushing around time. But now I was on my own. It was very different. It was a great opportunity for me to birdwatch, which I very much enjoy. And it was a lovely spring, if you remember, in 2020. And perhaps, especially in the spring, we should call it not just bird watching, but bird listening, because this is a time when they are at their noisiest. I can remember saying to a friend that I could hear the nuthatch before I even got in the park. He's beep, 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 echoed very loudly, although he's quite a small bird. And I'm sure that translated into English it would be, "Come along, lady nuthatches, come and see me, I'm looking very smart, and I've found some wonderful dwelling places you might enjoy. Come and see." And alongside that, another small bird like the wrens. You could always hear the wrens with their high-pitched sound and their right in the middle. And the beautiful sound of a robin, such a pretty song. And then the fluty sound of the blackbirds and the thrushes. Quite a choir. But to really appreciate this choir, I had to be still. I had to calm down, to be quiet, and to listen. And it was beautiful to listen. And one day I heard another sound, and this was a drumming. Came in little bursts, a definite drum, and of course it was a woodpecker. So I followed the sound very carefully, and after a little while I found him, halfway up a tall tree, and there he was, hammering away with great enthusiasm, banging away, and day after day as I came back to the park again and again, there he was, same tree, same place, working his socks off, really trying hard, until eventually he drummed out a neat, tidy little hole in the tree, and the drumming stopped, and he disappeared inside. And soon after that, it was apparent there was another woodpecker, so they were now a pair, and they entered the hole. Soon after that, I observed, there was one friend who looked with me, that the birds took it in turns in the hole. So they were obviously incubating eggs, and they would swap over so that they took that responsibility in fairness and took it in turns. This changeover was absolutely fascinating to watch. Blink and you missed it. One bird exited the hole and the other one very quickly took over. It wasn't long before they started coming to the hole with their beaks full of lovely grubs and delicious goodies. Obviously, they now had babies. And they started to feed them. And this went on and on and on for quite some time, until one day a new head appeared at the hole and stuck its head out and took a good look at the world outside. It had a little red hat at the top of its head. It was obviously a baby. And not long after this, the birds flew into the big wide world. They fledged. So my time of watching this wonderful story was over. But it's made me think, because that lovely scene that I watched so often was bypassed by many, rather like with the seal. Great many people walk past. Occasionally they glance at, "What are you watching?" But then they didn't stop and they didn't wait. They carried on. And so they missed the little story that was taking place in front. It's made me think about what we do with our prayer times. and how we conduct them, our time spent with the Lord. I think about Samuel as a young boy when the Lord called him, and when he eventually realised it was God calling, Samuel says, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And then in John's Gospel, Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold, and I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." How good are we at listening? How good are we at being still in the Lord's presence? Do we so much want to tell him what's on our own heart without listening to what is on his? I'll just read the words of a little song that hopefully you will be able to enjoy. Listen, can you hear the Lord speak to you? Listen, can you hear him call your name? Listen, can you hear the Lord speak to you? He wants to tell you what to do. He wants to show you who you are. He wants to fill you with his life. Listen, can you hear the Lord speak to you?